Hey guys, and welcome to the Lower Chesapeake Bay Fishing Report, the first podcast to bring you the local offshore, nearshore, and inshore fishing report, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. We got a great fishing report lined up for you guys this week, but first let's hear who's making the show possible. GreatDaysOutdoors.com. Great Days Outdoors has been the premier destination for hunters and anglers looking for a comprehensive look into the outdoor lifestyle since 1997. Our stories are crafted by dedicated journalists who live, eat, and breathe all things hunting, fishing, conservation, and land ownership. Check them out at GreatDaysOutdoors.com. Listen up, folks. AFTCO has a new promotion for all Great Days Outdoors Podcast Network listeners. They're now offering a camo sunglasses cleaner cloth with any purchase of AFTCO products. I especially enjoy their hooded sun protection shirts, as well as their Seiko fluorocarbon. All you got to do to get your coupon code is text LCBFR to 779-345-2918. Again, just text the letters LCBFR to 779-345-2918 to get subscribed to our email list, and we'll send you the promo code via email. All right, guys, I appreciate y'all joining me this week. I am your host, Luke Barton. It's been a beautiful day here in Virginia Beach, and this show, it's a new addition to the Great Days Outdoors Podcast Network, and the purpose of this show is to bring a weekly offshore, nearshore, and inshore fishing report to anglers in our area, connecting folks with local charter guides that will be contributing their local knowledge each week about what's happening in our local waters. We also want this platform to promote sustainable fishing practices to preserve this world-class fishery for the next generation. We're going to kick it off here with an offshore report with Bill Pappas Jr. of Play and Hooky Charters. Bill, how you doing? Welcome to the show.
Hey, I'm doing pretty good, man. Thanks you guys for having me here.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. So, Bill, tell us what you've been seeing, what you've been catching, but most importantly, a little bit about that fresh new Seahawk rig you've been running.
Oh, man. Actually, thanks for asking that. We just built this 30-foot Seahawk and got the swim platform, the two Yamaha 300s for a total of 600 horsepower. And we built it basically for a charter boat for Virginia Beach to be the baddest boat in Virginia Beach, be able to take you all the way out there and very comfortably, very dry. And you'll be able to turn your seats around and go ahead and have a great offshore experience, do some deep dropping with some electrical ports hardwired in there. This boat took 2.5 years to build. It was like a brainchild of mine since I don't know, probably I guess I was a kid, but yeah, as you get older and you start fishing more, you always want to build a boat, and building a boat for this charter business here was, very important to be able to, like I said, comfortably and economically too, with the times changing. So, it has more on it. It's very, it's very built. It's built for Virginia Beach. So it should be just a very fun boat. It took everything I had to get it here. So I'm happy it's finally arrived.
No, it's beautiful. And you've got a big tower on it as well too, right?
We sure do. We built it emulate a smaller pocket fort. We call it like a pocket sport fisher.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because they're sport fishers. They can look over their crew and they can look down and watch the action in the cockpit. And that's the same setup we have the way I designed it with the local builders. I went and had Mike's SNS build Mike at SNS build my tower, and he had that thing just exact. I kept moving it just like I wanted it, but he got it just right where it didn't look like a cobia's nest that would just beat you up there. And it was something to cover you from the sun. But we really love this boat. Yeah, I think it's going to do pretty good. It's got a pretty good couple fish under its belt already. Lucky boat.
Oh yeah, I mean, I follow you guys on the socials, and you guys are always putting some meat on the deck. I know lately you've been doing quite a bit of offshore fishing, so tell us a little bit about what you've been seeing offshore. What's been happening? What kind of species are you targeting? What you've been catching?
All right. Well, one of our favorite things to do is eat tuna, yellowfin tuna. It's our favorite fish. So as you start to see in the socials that they're catching more and more tuna from Oregon Inlet and even Hatteras, you start to wonder how far your boat can go. And over the years, we would bring extra fuel tanks, and sometimes you'd get all the way out there, and the cold water in hours would move so far away that you had to make the decision to turn around with your tail between your legs or keep going and just turn at Oregon Inlet and refuel to get home. So a couple times we did that, and it paid off with a tuna or two. For us, for Virginia Beach, it was cool. It was an adventure. But as you get the newer boat that's got twice the fuel tank with 238 gallons, we did almost 300 miles the other day, and covered a lot of the water. We covered a lot of water to get there. We went 111 miles for this tuna, and we ended up landing right on this tuna and having a great time before the bite turned off. Got ourselves 4, and came back real happy for the crew. 4 of us, 4 tunas, worked out just fine.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I'm sure there was a captain's cut involved somewhere, right?
Here's how that worked, man. It wasn't a charter, thankfully. It was just the buddies. But here's how the captain's cut worked out. There was 4 tunas. It was the first one of the year, and I ran down there just to make sure they were. I could tell everyone was pretty nervous about this first one, so I just ran down there to end the misery and the anxiety. And I stuffed this thing in the face and threw it on the ground in half a second. Ran right back up top, and they were happy, which ended up being the biggest tuna of the day, which ended up being my tuna. So I was like, everybody gets one tuna, but I know which one I'm getting.
How big does she weigh?
Yeah, it was about 40, 45 pounds. The other ones were pretty big too. They weren't that small, but they were good.
Oh, it's perfect table fare.
Oh man, sushi, yeah, hand rolls. We've already had poke, steaks, you name it, man. We love eating that yellowfin.
You remember back when the bluefin were running, and we talked
Sure
about
do.
those little butane torches, and you got one of those things, and you started torching some of your hand rolls. Got real fancy like.
You told me about that. I remember you showed me a picture of someone doing that over there in Spain or something, you said.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, you know what? I had a whole party full of people at their house, and I was like, it was pretty entertaining. But I broke that torch out and hit the top of that bluefin toro, and we
Oh,
all gave it a go. I don't know if everybody liked it, but I know a few did. So I mean, it was pretty cool to try, though. That was for sure. That little food,
absolutely.
sweet man.
So when you're out there catching those yellowfins, and like you said, you guys had to go 111 miles the other day. What are you doing to target them? You trolling, dropping? What's your typical strategy for them?
Honestly, this time of year, there's a big pocket of warm water, the Gulf Stream. Everyone's familiar with that. You want to wait for it to come up from North Carolina and work its way up to the Virginia line and work its way up to the Norfolk Canyon and places like that. To eat, not easy, but it's the pretty tried and true method of finding those fish going out to the overboard area where the water's really blue and green, and not green, and you catch them in the temperature breaks pretty much. But this year, and usually our target area is 65. Our charter area is 65, 70 miles. 2.5 hour
Hmm.
ride, 3 hour ride, normal thing around here. And you catch tunas, you're in the mahis. But that particular trip was 5 hour run each way. So and that's doing generously going through seas and waves and currents and changing
Hmm.
trims times. But when you get back with all that tuna, it's so worth it. Just so worth it. I just
Oh
love
yeah,
having. I love it. It's one of the funnest things to catch.
absolutely. You mentioned on the new rig, and I know you've had a Seahawk before, and the new Seahawk you purpose built, and you mentioned some electric reel sockets. What are you typically using the electric reels for? What are you targeting with those?
All right. So for the electric reels, lately we've besides just going for tuna, we've also been going offshore deep dropping. Now the deep dropping is anywhere we usually considered from 300. It can be 200 considered deep drop, but 200 plus, 250 plus,
Hmm.
and a lot of people use electric reels for that. After you've reeled in from 800 feet up to 1,200 feet, you've reeled in a couple times without anything on your pole or a shark a few times, you're worn out. It's tedious. It's backbreaking. They've come up with rods that reel 4 to 1 and 7 to 1 and make it easier to get up and down, but it's pretty deep. So you want to have electric ports. Now this boat we built has 4 ports hardwired into the boat, so they're already part of the system. They don't need external batteries and all that other kind of stuff. You just kind of plug right in and work your way around the boat. And we can take and do 6 at a time. We have 4 ports, but we still bring a couple batteries for the other 2. And we can bring
That's
6, which makes a huge difference going fishing 800 feet.
Oh yeah, to have six of those things rolling at the same time. And
Yeah,
and does that mean that you can have up to six people on a charter?
that's right. We have a 6-pack license. We built this new boat so we could take 6 offshore and
That's
6.
cool.
Yeah. So, and comfortably, two,
Hmm.
4 chairs, 2 bean bags, nice and comfortable curtains.
That's awesome. And down at those depths, 800, 1,200 feet, what kind of species are you seeing down there?
So you're targeting. So sometimes you're doing the target of one specific species, and you'll look for this range and that range. The blue line tiles from 200 to 400, and you're looking at you find sea bass in there sometimes, and you can find your grouper and your rosies at 400 to 700 feet deep, and then
Hmm.
you're 900. You're looking for your golden tiles and your grouper, and then you're gonna find deeper than that. You're gonna find your hake and your grouper, and those depths and some exotics down there. You're gonna find some other little species you never heard of or something. You just never know from that deep. It's eating your stuff. You'll
Yeah.
pull time to time, reeling in, and you'll pull up another giant shark you're not going to want anything to do with from time to time with those electrics as well. And I've seen tuna be caught, catch yellowfin tuna in the summertime when those people
Wow.
have been lucky enough reeling something and they wanted to eat probably a chub mackerel or a squid or something they hooked, a foul hooked.
A chub mackerel. I don't know if I've ever seen one of those.
Yeah,
Goofy
those
looking fish.
Man, they're like a tinker mackerel. They're just round the whole way. It's kind of like a Boston mackerel, but it's just a little bit bigger and fatter, and they're used for live bait and marlin at the end of the summer
Okay.
for as bait. They're not allowed in tournaments. People get upset about people using live bait for tournaments for marlin turns.
Bill, what's the craziest? Like you've obviously been fishing this area for a long, long time. You've been out all over the place. What's the craziest thing you've caught fishing at those depths?
Okay, here we go. It was this. It was the most. I don't know about crazy, but the most exotic was as crazy as those goddamn big eye threshers when you're sword fishing. Those are pretty nuts. But the craziest, though, the most exotic was it was a 35-pound cusk in like 14 to 1500 feet of water. I got stuck on the bottom and got it out of the wreck, and I pulled up this cusk, and it looked like a cobia. It looked
Oh
just like a.
wow.
Only thing was is that it would have been the world record. It was definitely the U.S. record or whatever record it could have been around here, but there was one caught in Portugal, I believe, or somewhere over there. Scandinavia, I don't know. It was on the other side of the water by by nearing Europe,
Okay.
some European country, and they caught it. So they have the cusk record, but it ended up being like a scallop. I mean, it was a really tough fish that was rubber, but when you cooked it the right way, made little popcorns of it, it was pretty darn good. That was pretty exotic for us.
I follow your socials, Bill, and if there's one thing I see a lot of fish, and then I see a lot of fish getting cooked. So tell me a little bit about what you do in the kitchen because you're always cooking something up or frying something up.
Well, as we speak, there's bluefish outside already been hit with the fan and already smoking. We've got some bluefin toro from January. We froze up and it's getting smoked. It got marinated lightly. We've also got some yellowfin belly and a just actual piece of yellowfin tail where the so I can make it into a tuna fish sandwich for that one.
Mm.
And when it comes to cooking some fish, we just had hake for lunch. Now hake is been in our pictures. That's another one you catch down there. Some hake, and the hake, honestly, they might be tougher to clean if you don't have a sharp knife or an electric knife. But when you figure it out and get the hang of it, you can pull a fillet off there that makes the softest meat that you. It's rare, so you kind of want to. You pump it up because nobody else can do it. But when that comes to me, I don't have a reason to pump it up because I could eat any of the fish. And when it comes to that one, it was pretty darn good today. We ate more than we usually would eat, my daughter and I, and she really loved it. And she's a tough one to please. So it was beautiful to have her enjoying that fish like it. And it also cut into nice sandwiches. I could see it was kind of like a cod. It was
Hmm.
really soft I wouldn't call it flaky. It was just, man, it was just good.
Mm.
It's just different. It was less tough than golden tile, less tough than sea bass. And those rosies are pretty good too.
You got me hungry, man. It's almost dinner time where we are, so I'm ready to eat some. You mentioned that cusk fish. I never heard of a cusk fish, and I Googled it just because I was curious. And you said it kind of looked like a cobia, and it actually is a cod. They're saying it's a cod-like fish that's in the ling family, which cobia is a ling. So that's kind of cool that you picked up on that. Captain Bill, you said you
Yo,
can take up to 6 people.
that's right.
We've got some hopefully good weather coming our way and some warm water coming our way. Folks are
Has
listening and they want to book a trip with playing hooky. I know your catchphrase. I want to hear you say it. When we book with playing hooky, what happens?
You get booked and you get hooked.
Hell
That's,
yeah.
that's right. We say that there and we say, let's go fishing, just like they did in that TV show in Hawaii when I was growing up.
Oh, that's awesome. So you're from Hawaii.
I was raised there from second grade to 11th grade. Before that, I was in Arizona and Virginia. So I
Hmm.
had born in South Carolina. My dad was in the military, so he moved around a bunch and
Hmm.
we went to California, but we ended up settling in Hawaii for 8 years, which was second grade to 11th grade, which just ends up being a pretty good chunk of your lifetime when you call it growing up.
Right, right.
So
Yeah.
and then I got back to Virginia, and when the wheel of fortune finally stopped spinning, and I had a choice, I was like, "We're not going anymore. We're staying." So I stayed. I like it here, and I love it here. I've been here long, almost 30 some years.
That's awesome.
So
It's a
it's home
world
now.
it's a world-class fishery, and I know you work hard to preserve it. And if folks want to get up with you and book a trip on playing hooky charters, what's the best way they get in touch with you, Bill?
There's a bunch of ways they can. I mean, they can message on Facebooks, and they can do that, and they can do find the phone number, and Google it and stuff like that. But the easiest way is just hit the website and check out what we got. And then it gives you all the open, you select the trip, you
Hmm.
pick the trip you want. You figure out how long you want to fish. There's a couple different options for that. The offshore is 12 hours. We got full days for 8 hours for wreck fishing. We have full days inshore, which is like spade, cobia, a little bit of trolling if
Hmm.
necessary. We've got inshore half days we can do in the inlet with kids. We're very kid friendly. We do the crab, and you want to go out in the inlet and catch little small stuff with your kids, that's fine. We'll take you to do that. But then again, we'll take you offshore for 12 hours, and we'll take you deep dropping for 12 hours, and that's the bigger trip that takes you can take up to 6 people,
Hmm.
and you tuna, mahi, marlin. You can catch all these things at a certain time of year if they're what's biting. If not, we'll try to have a backup option for you to deep drop and catch some fish to bring something home to eat after spending a good bit of money with your friends to have a great time.
Yep.
Or birthdays and weekends and stuff. But yeah, the website works out great. You just select the trip. It'll bring up the calendar. You pick a date if it's open because we're already booked all the way to July on our Saturdays. That just got wiped out a few minutes ago. So, you want to get a date reserved, and it's no big deal. If you guys have to change your date or something, we can move it around and pick another open date. I'm not really, I'd rather go fishing than keep your deposit. So
That's good to hear.
just hit the website and pick a date, man, and get a deposit in and hold that date. Just move it around if you need to. And, up to 3 days, anywhere in 3 days, I'll cancel for weather or anything like that. And, that's about all, man.
That's awesome, man. What's that website?
It's going to be playinhookeycharters.com. PLAYIN. There's no G. It's playing, and then you got HOOKEY, hook, HOOK, and then EY. And the key is at the end because we used to run a Key West, so it's hook key. That's why it's the key. No one knows that really, but there was a hook key when we were opening the business way back in 2015. We were going to run it with a 19-foot center console and looked around and we're like, where's everybody going to sit? Where's everybody? One person will stay dry. So we had to wait a little bit before we, broke the doors open.
That's awesome, man. Well, Captain Bill, thanks so much for being on the show. We look forward to hearing from you more in the future. And like you said, get booked and get hooked.
Awesome, man. I got a real quick question. Where can I find this podcast?
You can find this anywhere you can listen to podcasts, iTunes, Spotify. It is the Lower Chesapeake Bay Fishing Report.
Lower Chesapeake Bay Fishing Report. Thank you so much, guys.
Yes, sir. Thanks for being on the show. Have a great day.
All right, you too, buddy. Bye-bye.
It's always good to hear what's going on offshore. We're going to take another quick break and check out this week's sponsors. Fish Bites. Whether you're hitting the bay to catch bait fish using the traditional scent strips or fishing the rivers or marshes for speckled trout, red drum, and flounder, Fish Bites has something for you. Family owned and operated in St. Augustine, Florida, they pride themselves on making reliably consistent fishing products for anglers of all ages around the world. Fish Bites baits and lures are made with pride in the Sunshine State, USA. Check out the full line of scented saltwater and freshwater baits at fishbites.com. All right, y'all, welcome back. We're going to kick it off here with a nearshore report. We're talking to Captain Sean Shapiro from See Me Sport Fishing. Sean, what's up, man? How you been doing?
Hey, guys. Good, man. Good. How are you?
Doing great, man. Welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about your boat and a little bit about what you guys offer and some of your specialties there with See Me Sport Fishing.
Yeah, man. So right now I'm running a 28 Downeaster. It's a really beamy boat. It's got a 12-foot beam and got a 350 Suzuki with the counter rotating props and set up with a tower for cobia fishing. Do a lot of cobia fishing and a lot of offshore, well, near shore, we would consider it here, but wreck fishing.
Very cool. 12-foot beam. That's got to be a solid rig to run around on.
Absolutely, man. She's a little heavy on the ride, but once you get out there, that thing will lay up in just about any kind of weather and get you fishing, pretty comfortably. So
that's
nice
awesome.
boat.
You said it's a Downeaster?
Downeaster, yep. The Island Edition Downeaster, 96, which I redid the boat completely 3 years ago.
I remember you put a ton of work into it and then built that custom top on it as well. How many folks you got when you're up in that tower? How many folks can you fit side by side?
Man, I stack them up there. I'll have 4 or 5 people on a tournament day, no problem. But yeah, that's one of the reasons I built it so big, so I could fish 3 or 4 people up there comfortably. That's a big deal, cobia fishing. You sit up there and relax, get dialed.
Yep, more eyes on the water for sure. So See Me Sport Fishing, you guys offer several different types of charters. I know you've been doing a lot of nearshore wreck fishing lately. What you been seeing? What you been catching?
Yeah, so we just finished up our tautog season, which tautog we catch here during the winter months from January, February, March. It goes all the way until May, but I stopped right around April. And this past winter, man, had a great season. I think we ended up with 68 fish over 10 pounds, which is a pretty good accomplishment. Had several that were from the 16-pound to 19-pound range.
Shoo.
Pretty good winter, man.
Those are some big togs. Good eating fish too, isn't it?
Yeah, one of the better eating fish, yeah, I'd say. And, that size of tautog really it's world class. People come from all over to experience that. And I'm one of the few guys here that do it during the winter. So
that's
pretty
awesome,
good gear.
What's the furthest someone's traveled to come fish with you for some tog?
Man, I get, Massachusetts and Maine and a lot of people from New York and New Jersey. They love their blackfish. So.
Oh, okay. They call it blackfish.
Blackfish, that's right.
Wow, that's
The
very
tall
cool.
tog.
The tall tog. And they got those big old teeth in their mouth too, don't they?
Yeah, they're set up to, primarily eat crabs and shellfish, crustaceans. So they've got some big old chompers on them, and they're pretty good at stealing your bait off the hook too. You'll drop down and you won't even feel a swipe. You'll come up with nothing. So
Completely stripped. So
yeah.
when you're targeting those fish, do you have a preferred bait lineup that you like to take out there? What's your typical strategy when you're targeting some tall tog here in these nearshore wrecks?
Yeah, so typically, there's several different crabs out there that, people use. A favorite up north is the white legger crab. That's really a good crab to use. And some people put them on their hole or, cut them up. Locally here, our crab is the blue crab. So
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to beat a local bait, get a nice piece of blue crab down there. And then once the spring hits, you can switch over and use fiddler crabs. You can try clams, conchs, pretty much a hermit crab works really good. Any kind of crab like that, but blue crab is definitely up there at the top.
And when you're dropping those different bait types down, do you have a preferred rig or setup in terms of rod and reel that you prefer for, getting that bait down there and being able to rip those guys out of that wreck real quick?
Yeah, so you definitely want something a little heavier so you can hold them, get them out the wreck, but you got to have a light tip to feel that bite. So you're fishing anywhere from a 7 to 8 foot rod, and you want a reel that's got a good action on it with good crank ratio, and then just your rig, primarily just up down rig, top bottom rig with a couple of hooks on there, and some people use 60. You can use I would recommend using nothing less than 60. So, if you get you a big one on there, you don't want to break them off. But then other people, they switch over and use jigs. That jigging has been a big thing here lately. And that's set up totally different than what I just mentioned. So it would be like super light line, like, 15 to 20 pound test and light setup rods, almost like your bass fishing.
Mm-hmm. In order to get that bait deep down there near the rig, but not get swept away by the current.
Yeah. And then when you hook the fish, then instead of muscling them out of the wreck, you're pretty much at their mercy. And they're going on runs, taking you on 20, 30-yard runs, and pretty different fight. But yeah, man, either one, cool. Fun to me.
Absolutely. What's the biggest fish, kind of like lightest line, biggest fish? Have you ever played around with that at all? I know some of those hardcore guys like to catch a real big fish on the lightest line. Have you ever played around with that with those togs?
Yeah, well, a buddy of mine, has the world class records, and that's all he does is chase the lighter line records. But buddy Bruce Stout fished with me, and he likes to fish 20-pound fluorocarbon and 15-pound braid. And he had a 21.8 not too long ago.
Good Lord. A 21-pound tog on 20-pound leader with 15-pound braid.
Yeah, that'd be so nervous. He was like, man, I thought it was going to break the whole entire time, but they ended up landing the fish. Pretty fish. But...
That's awesome. Yeah, nothing beats that excitement when you see that fish finally and you get that color and you see it's a good one. And then all of a sudden, all that stress sets in. You're like, get it in the net, get it in the boat.
Yeah, pretty much right. When you're tog fishing and you hook a good one, pretty much right away, the difference. And then from then on, you're tensed up trying to get them to the boat. But yeah,
that's
it's awesome. And I was fortunate enough to see a lot of big fish come over the rail this winter, man. It was a good season. And a lot of people, they come to chase their personal best. And, fortunately, we were able to put them on those fish. So that's pretty cool. But
it was awesome. I was following you guys on, Instagram and the socials all winter long. And, I'd be sitting in my office, plugging away at the computer and look at the story. And there's another jumbo tog coming over the rail. I'm like, good Lord, he's just putting a smack down on those things. I'm curious, when does that season kind of run for our waters here locally? When's that season run?
It's something you can do pretty much all winter, January right on through to May.
Mm-hmm.
But the biggest thing we deal with here is the weather, obviously.
Right. And we had some nasty stretches there this winter. Be glad to be out of it.
This March I read something where 70% of the days the gusts were over 30 miles per hour. So yeah, it was pretty hard to deal with to make it out there, but a couple of days you do get, you got to make it count. So,
Those are the days you're glad for those curtains and that big old 12-foot beam so you can just plow right through that stuff.
That's right. Some days we went 8 or 9 knots, 40 miles, but once we got there, they were happy to see us. So.
Oh yeah. So what's coming up? It's May 3rd. We've got cobias and redfish showing up soon for our near shore and kind of inshore in the Chesapeake Bay. I heard something about some sea bass coming up, open up, I think on what, May the 15th. Is that right?
Yes, sir. So that'll be May 15th, and that is probably one of the best fisheries we have as far as fast action and a lot of fish. The limit here is 15 per person at 13 inches. And a lot of the times you go out there and you'll catch a boat limit, which would be over 100 fish. You'll catch that in 45 minutes if you're on the right wreck. So pretty fun to do. And that'll start May 15th and go on until July.
Awesome.
And then, of course, we've got the cobia season creeping up.
Mm-hmm.
My
So
specialty.
I know you love chasing them cobias.
Yeah.
And if anybody in the local Virginia Beach or Lower Chesapeake Bay area follows any of the tournaments, you're likely to see me up there on the leaderboard, if not on the very top of it. So for folks that are wanting to get up with you and book a trip, whether that's for the upcoming sea bass or redfish cobia season, what's the best way for folks to get a hold of you and get in touch?
Primarily, my Facebook page will be See Me Sport Fishing, and it's SEAMEE Sport Fishing. You can direct message me on there. My phone number's on there also. You can reach me directly, 757-802-8486. Captain Sean. If I don't get back to you right away, I'll usually within a day I'll reach you.
Awesome, man. And you and I chatted a couple days ago. We've got a couple of mainstay tournaments for cobia in the area, but I think the one all the local guys love and look forward to each year is the Big Man's Cobia Tournament, which is typically, I think, in August. I know there's some exciting changes coming up with that this year. Tell me a little bit about that.
All right, so yeah, the local Big Man's Tournament, it's the last tournament of the year for cobia, and it has grown to be the biggest tournament of the year for cobia. We're going on our 7th annual, and this year I've taken over management, and I'll be hosting and running the tournament, which last year we ended up winning the tournament.
Yes, you
And
did.
those dates are going to be August 15th, and then the fishing days will be the 16th and 17th. So that'll be a Friday, Saturday. And we're looking forward to it, man. We're going to really put it out there this year. Like you said, we've got a lot of new changes coming. Going to have a great party, great captain's meeting. So changed up some of the rules this year also. So look into that. Trying to give out some big money. Last year we gave out 75,000. So we're trying to reach 100,000 this year. Yeah.
100,000, man. That'd be awesome. That's a lot of Calcutta money.
It is, be some happy fishermen out there.
Mm-hmm. Probably some new motors on some winning boats.
I like to say tournament money paid for a little bit of my boat,
Right. Now, as the tournament director and host this year, are you going to fish, or are you going to be sitting on the bench and working and slaving to make it happen?
Yeah, so I will not be fishing, unfortunately. I may let some guys take my boat and go fishing, but no, man, I'm going to be right in there, doing the weigh-ins and keeping everything going and being in touch with everybody. So it's kind of hard to do on the water, and I wouldn't feel right doing that. So yes, sir, I'll be on land managing everything. So I'm looking forward to getting everybody in this year.
Y'all heard it here first. Everyone has a chance now.
That's right.
Well,
Yes,
cool,
sir.
man.
I've gotten that question more than anything else. Well, are you fishing? I'm like, nah, not fishing.
Yeah, it's like if anybody sees that purple boat go by, they're like, well, there must be cobias in the area. There goes Captain Sean. Well, we're excited about it, man. It's going to be a good tournament. I know that we always see, the numbers rise. Hopefully we'll be blessed with some great weather this year so everybody can get out there and fish safely. I think that's been one thing over the years. I personally have had days where I'm like, man, is it really even safe to go? And it can be tough to make that call as a tournament director if it's going to be a blow day or not. So we know it's a lot of hard work, and everyone's appreciative of you running it and making it happen. Sean, anything else for us before we get wrapped up coming up? If we're going to book with you, get you on the Instagram or the Facebook, SEAMEE, See Me Sport Fishing. Anything else for our listeners before we wrap up?
Yes, sir, man. Y'all want to get out on the water? We do a lot of good wreck fishing, sea bass, flounder, obviously cobia and red drum. Go ahead and give me a contact, sooner than later. I usually fill up pretty quickly and got a handful of availability now. So everybody else, man, join us for the tournament. We'd love to have y'all, and I'll give you a report next week, Captain Luke.
Awesome. Thank you, Captain Sean. All right, guys, that wraps up another great segment. Let's take a quick break and check out this week's sponsors. Hilton's Offshore Charts. The days of heading out and blindly looking for good fishing areas are pretty much over. Don't waste time and money on fuel searching for fish. You need the most recent, highest resolution images to not only know where to go, but where not to go. The knowledge provided by today's technology is critical when planning an offshore fishing trip. So make the choice that professional captains all over the East Coast make and choose Hilton's Real-Time Navigator. The easy-to-use interface and excellent customer service will have you on the fish every time you go. Check them out at hiltonsoffshore.com. That's hiltonsoffshore.com. All right, guys, welcome back to the show. For this inshore report, we're going to be talking to Captain Eric Myers on the Heads and Tails charters. Eric, I know you run two boats. Today, we're talking a little bit more about what's been going on inshore. So to kick us off, welcome to the show and tell us a little bit about your boat and what you guys specialize in over at Heads and Tails Charters.
Well, we have two boats. We have a 22-foot bay boat that we do mostly inshore out to about the second island or so. Then we got a 31-foot contender that will go a little bit further. But the 22-foot bay boat's got a 175 Suzuki, and we can draft about 5.5 inches, so we can get real skinny with it.
That's very cool. And inshore, I know on that 22-foot boat, I've seen you guys out there putting a hurting on a couple of puppy drum and some other things. What have you been seeing inshore on that bay boat?
We've been getting a lot of bigger pups the last week and a half, anywhere from like 22 to 31 inches.
Wow.
Oh yeah, nice fish, nice class of fish, great fight.
When you're going after those 22, 25-inch, red drum, what kind of setup are you using for those?
We're using a 7-foot medium light rod, 10-pound braid, and then most of my rods have 2,500 Shimano reels on them.
Okay, so 25-pound braid, and then what do you typically like to use for leader and maybe like a lure type to get after those puppies?
It all depends on where you're fishing. Lynnhaven Inlet is a very diverse inlet. It has a lot of deep water and a lot of shallow water. Depending on where you're at, you could be using a 16th ounce jig head to target fish swimming in 2 foot of water, or like we have been the last week and a half, using a 1/4 to 3/4 ounce jig, fishing a little bit deeper water, 10 to 15 foot of water adjacent to the flats.
And when you're fishing in that deeper water, you mentioned going up to those heavier jigs. Are you finding that it works better to kind of focus in during a specific tide cycle, that you see a little bit more activity where you have to, go up and wait? What's your typical strategy as those tide? I know we have a huge tide change. What's your strategy around tide changes in the inlet there?
So early in the season, I like to fish a fuller tide just because the water's cleaner. We get a lot of wind here in the spring, and the water gets real dirty. The best way to counteract that is to wait for the more flood tide. Usually that change between incoming to outgoing, that's usually going to be your best time pretty much throughout the year.
Mm-hmm.
It pushes fish up to more structure in shallow water, which kind of narrows down where you have to go. So if you find a dock that has, let's say, a good dock, a nice wide dock that has a lot of structure to it, a lot of pinelands in the water, it's been there a while, it's got oyster shells on it, it normally will have grass on it this time of year, adjacent to, like, let's say, a drop off where it goes from, like yesterday we were fishing in 3.5 foot of water. About 15, 20 yards down is a drop off where it's 6 foot. At night, this time of year, those fish are going to go into that drop off. They're going to be in the deeper water in the nighttime, just so that water stays more constant temp.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then during the day, they'll move up onto the shallower flats, sun, and chase bait, because that's going to be the first spot that bait's going to pop up this time of year. Going to be shallow, and it's usually going to be in the oyster beds or grass beds.
And, fishing deep water versus that shallow water, the differences between night and day, do you find that there's like maybe a color or a lure type that works better for nighttime versus daytime?
The old rule of thumb that we always follow is dark colors at night, white, natural colors in the daytime. I mean, we'll fish all the colors throughout the day, but my typical go-to is, like, let's say one of those Z-Man diesel minnows in like a Houdini color, which is a brown reddish color with a white bottom. Looks really close to a gudgeon mud minnow. Mm-hmm. Those are the first things out of the mud. Those are the first things that fish are going to find and eat.
And in your opinion, everybody can kind of key in on different colors. In your opinion, as a professional angler that's getting in there and putting a hurting on them regularly, how much difference do you think it makes between color versus presentation?
Honestly, the way I've put it together, being chartering for these things for so long now, is if you have confidence in your lure, you will catch something on that lure. I've had guys that I've had the best days, the best day before using a white paddle tail. They get on the boat, they want to use some, let's say, like a root beer and chartreuse color,
Mm-hmm.
something I something I don't have very many of, but I have the color because people like to throw that color, and they'll catch fish on it because they're confident in that, and they're going to put the right amount of effort into working that lure because they're confident in that lure. I hardly ever throw that electric chicken.
Mm-hmm.
I I know
That
it catches fish.
pink and green.
Pink, pink, yeah, pink and green. Sometimes maybe it has a yellow to it,
Mm-hmm.
but I hardly ever throw it. But do I have it in the boat? Yeah, I have guys that get on the boat, and that's the first lure they want. And I have a tendency of having all the jigs ready on the boat. But throughout the day, if people are struggling or whatever, I open up the tackle box, and at any given moment, I probably have 100 packs of Z-Mans, every single color, every single size, every single presentation you can have. And I let the charters pick. And 9 times out of 10, they'll pick something that they like, they're confident in, and they'll catch a fish on it.
I remember the one time that I went with you for an inshore trip, and I felt bad. I lost so many of your jigs hooking on the dock pilings. I was like, man, he's gonna charge me extra. But no, I know you do have a big assortment there. So, but that makes a lot of sense in terms of confidence. Like I play a lot of golf, and it's a similar thing. If you're looking down at that golf ball and you like the way it looks, you tend to just do better when you're confident and you got that right mindset. So coming up, it's May 4th. May the 4th be with us. What's going to be coming up this week in terms of what you're going to be targeting? Are you going to be on the bay boat or the big boat?
More than likely, we'll have a little bit of both. We'll have the bay boat for the first part of the week. I got a couple afternoon charters, and then I think later on in the week we'll be targeting the bigger red drum over either in Pocosin or we found them around the islands yesterday.
How big are we talking?
Anywhere from high 30s to low 50 inches.
Wow. And what's a citation for a big bull red drum these days?
I believe it's 46 inches.
46 inches. Okay. Very cool. And when you're targeting those big reds, are you doing it primarily by sight, like from a tower, or do you like to look for them with your bottom machine?
This time of year can be tricky because if you're in the shallows, like if you're soaking bait on like the eastern shore or somewhere, it's hard to run around and side scan in 10 foot of water, and more than likely less than that. I mean, normally I like to be in about 3.5 to 4 foot soaking baits.
Okay. Makes sense.
So it's hard to side scan those fish. You just, like I said, you gotta have confidence that they'll be there. You can wait till you get a sunny day with a nice ocean water up there, and you can go along the outside of like Fisherman's Island, going north through that slough, and you can kind of sight fish for them through there, or you can go over to Pocosin Flats.
Check them out of there.
That's a really unique fishery up there.
I've heard a lot about it. I've never seen it for myself. I did see some videos posted this past week from down in the Carolina area of just some, acres of schools of giant red drum. I think that's one of the coolest things. I mean, I've seen it a few times in our area, and I think that's just one of the coolest sights to see is just that big acreage of brown water, and you get a little closer and you start to see these individual silhouettes, and you're like, oh my goodness. And then, of course, there's always the chance of a giant cobia being in the middle of them.
That's what we wish for. It's not like you could ever hook them out of it. So
no, those reds are so hungry and so aggressive. You could probably catch them on a soda can if you wanted to.
Oh, yeah, there's been many a guy up here that have put ridiculous things in the water to catch them.
I got two questions. What's that?
When they get in those big schools, they get so aggressive.
Oh yeah. So I got two questions for you. What's the furthest you've ever taken that 22-foot bay boat?
Oh man, I don't think I should say it. My dad might see this. But we've been 40 miles offshore in that boat.
40 miles?
Yeah.
What were you doing?
We don't know. One of those pretty days, and we just went east and just kept going.
That's awesome. Did you catch anything?
No, not a thing.
Just went.
We just went.
Just burning some fossil fuels.
Oh yeah. I mean, it only holds 49 gallons, and we still had fuel left when we got in. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And your years of catching fish, what's the wildest thing that you've ever seen caught inside the Lynnhaven Inlet?
Man, I'd probably have to say We've all caught a bull shark in there.
Wow.
Um,
How big?
it's small. It was like maybe 4 foot, but
That's
I
wild.
think it was 2 years ago. We had one of the big ones. We were fishing deep docks in the summer, and we had a redfish almost up to the boat, and it came up and ate it, like the videos you see in Florida.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
it was actually quite terrifying because once it once it ate the fish, it disappeared. We're only in 6 foot of water,
Right.
like it gone, like you can't see it. I was just in shock because I was leaning over to net the fish, and I mean that was 3 years ago.
It's interesting you said that's 3 years ago. Have you noticed a difference in the Lynnhaven Inlet since the old Lesnar Bridge to the new Lesnar Bridge in terms of, do you feel like it's allowing more flow in and out and maybe more fish in and out?
Yeah, I feel like those type of fish, like our big thing would be like the redfish, trout, and bluefish, rockfish type deal.
Hmm.
I feel like they have more of a chance to come into our inlet first now instead of hitting that bridge and going north.
Yeah,
But
I, I would agree.
it seems like our resident population of fish that we fit because I'll fish all winter long in there. When we get into the cold months in January and February, it's still good fishing. It's very surprising the fact that these fish just aren't leaving anymore.
Hmm. That makes it fun too because, around here, the doldrums of November, December, start everything starts to taper off a little bit, January, February. So having something to do, through those quieter months is fun. And our inlet is quite expansive. There's a lot of water in there to explore. So if folks want to get up with you and book a trip to do some inshore whacking, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
The easiest way would be either my Facebook or my Instagram. I have a link on there to the Valley Pro website that I use for booking. It's an active calendar, and it'll show what's available, what's not, and it'll also allow you to select your trips based on what you want to do. And
Okay.
it's fairly easy. And then my
Awesome.
phone number's on there too. So
Okay, great. And what's that phone number?
757-573-9569.
Perfect. And if I want to find you on Instagram or Facebook, what's the handle?
Instagram is Heads and Tails Charters, and then Facebook is Heads and Tails Charters by Captain Eric Myers.
Awesome. Captain Myers, thank you so much for that inshore report and a couple of them stories about your death-defying acts on that 22-foot bay boat. That wraps up another great report. So let's take another break here. And we're going to talk about what we learned today. All right, guys. So we're going to do a little recap of what did you learn. So it was really cool to talk to all these captains. Bill Pappas, captain on Plain Hooky Charters, Captain Sean Shapiro with See Me Sport Fishing, and then Captain Eric Myers with Heads and Tails Charters. Thinking about the offshore, I learned a little bit there about, the importance of paying attention to water temps and breaks. Also, really cool to hear all the different species, that he was talking about that you can find out there. The cusk, that fish that was in the ling family, rosies, golden line tile, blue line tile. I think he's seen some mako sharks out there before, the yellowfin tuna, bluefin tuna as well, which I think is, only here during a very certain time of the year. But it sounds like if you get out there on playing hooky, regardless of what you're going after, you're going to have fun. But I think Captain Bill is also going to be able to find a way to put you on some fish regardless. I really enjoyed listening to Captain Sean talk about, how he likes to go after those togs and, kind of understanding the importance of your line type and lure weight, and how, sometimes you're going to be able to just rip those fish up out of that wreck if you've got that, heavy duty braid and heavy duty leader material versus going with that lighter line and a lighter, jig head style of fishing where you're kind of at that fish's mercy, like he was talking about. And then, of course, Captain Sean's going to be hosting and managing the Big Man's Cobia tournament this year. So that should be a really exciting event. I've fished that tournament for the past couple of years, and it's, in my opinion, one of the best cobia tournaments in our area, put on by fishermen for fishermen. They do a great party, great captain's meeting. I think it was especially cool this past year for those that attended. They used artificial intelligence to animate Big Man. And so it was really cool to get to hear from Big Man himself, giving the rules and just making it a really fun time. And then inshore, listening to Captain Eric talk about, all the different things to pay attention to, in the Lynnhaven Basin especially. And I picked up on him talking about paying attention to structure that is mature in the sense that it's got some oyster growth and some grass, and looking out for structure like that is near drop-offs or significant changes in depth. Can be a really good place to target those fish based on whether it's daytime or nighttime. And then, of course, adjusting your jig head weight and lure color accordingly. So it's always fun to listen to these captains that are out there doing it every day, talk about, the little tips and tricks that can be the difference between, a frustrating day of not catching or catching something. And something Captain Eric said really stood out to me too, which is, that thought of just fishing with confidence. So I guess whatever rod or lure you're using, fish it like you mean it, fish it all the way back to the boat. I think that's something that I've learned through the years too, is, just because I didn't get a bite within the first couple of seconds of retrieval, don't stop fishing that lure until you get it all the way back to the boat. Had several times that I've had speckled trout, puppy drum. I mean, right at the boat, just smack that lure because they've been following it the whole time. All right, folks, that's going to wrap it up this week. Please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. And remember, to get your free AFTCO Camo Sunglasses Cleaning Cloth, just text the acronym LCBFR to 779-345-2918 to get your promo code and be added to our email list so we can send you the new show each week. You guys keep whacking them and be safe out there.